Hello everyone, the Rainbow Factory fan here, and today I'm going to be reacting to the Rainbow Factory. This is going to be the story this time, and not a PMV or AMV, just basically a music video, so it's not going to be one of those. Uh, this is not the one by the Lost Narrator though. The person that is going to be reading the story in this video is Grim Narrator, so, uh, yeah, uh, need to subscribe to, him on, this channel here, cause, um, yeah. So the video is 59 minutes and 42 minutes. And I might put this into parts, I might not, who knows, because this is gonna be the longest video that I've ever done, if I watch it all in one go, so or all at once, whatever you prefer. So um yeah. uh So the link for the video will be in the description if you want to read it for yourselves. And yeah, so let's get into it. Make sure I'm recording here though. Yeah. I see that he's using Scribbler's intro there. Month of Matchabur. I can't
Warning.
say that
The
right.
following reading contains content that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Yep. So if there's anyone that
There's long been rumors as to how exactly rainbows are made in Equestria. While Grandma Pegasus are employed in the Rainbow Department of Cloudsdale Weather Corporation, almost all of them do the lower factory work. What is known is that the great streams of spectra, the individual colors of the rainbow, flow out through large grates down into vast vats. From there, workers carefully mix the spectra into coagulated rainbow pools that dot and run throughout the factory and surrounding city. Next, that mixture is pumped into the floor below, where other employees atomize it and store it until the active weather Pegasi deploy it in the field. However, no one knows how individual spectra are made. Supplies are never seen being brought in, leaving no clue as to what goes into a rainbow.
Okay, guys, just before I continue on, if you see these staticky bits, that is not the video. That is me. I've put it on because I use the was it GT? No, it's not. Is it the GX browser? You can put shades and themes and whatnot, and I put the shade on to make the video more or to make everything staticky and whatnot, or creepy, I guess. So yeah, if you're wondering why the video is like that, it's not the video. So
Tourists visiting the factory are treated to a featureless and foreboding wall, with massive reinforced doors barring entry to any pony at all times. While most of the factory's various size and architecture is bubbly and welcoming, the Rainbow Factory's upper floor is protected by harsh imagery of potential hazards and death. The
man,
cloud wall is made not out of the clean white of the rest of the city, but of a black, quietly thundering fog. To become an employee of the Upper Rainbow Factory means sacrificing any life outside those ominous walls. Workers are sworn to secrecy and forbidden from leaving, living inside the facility itself.
that
Those
sucks.
few who ever managed to make it out not in a body bag were twisted and disturbed, too damaged to ever bring themselves to talk about it. Many theories were proposed. Dark magic from captured unicorns, chemicals and environmental hazards that no sane pony would tolerate, and even thoughts of another unknown sister of Celestia's, destined to create spectra instead of controlling some celestial body. None of them could be farther from the truth.
Man.
Come on, Orion, we're gonna be late for our final test!
Scootaloo called to a friend of hers. She was older now, in her last year of flight school. She, like all the other Pegasi in the school, was terribly nervous for the final test. Those that passed were granted freedom into the world to find their cutie marks, if they hadn't yet, and become working ponies. A little known, or at least little thought about fact, was what happened to the foals that failed their test. While uncommon, one or two from every class generally didn't have it in them to perform the rigorous acts and maneuvers. Those that failed their test were looked down upon in the worst of ways, shunned and hated. Cloudsdale had always bred a form of nationalism among its occupants. If you weren't the best, or didn't show the potential of being the greatest, you weren't allowed to be part of the flock. The
Damn.
glorious collective that Cloudsdalians referred to themselves as. Scootaloo moved a little to the side as Orion, a tall yet fairly skinny pony, settled next to her. He fluffed his light brown feathers and gave a worried attempt at a smile as he scanned his surroundings. They were sitting with all the other graduating Pegasi in a large and open waiting room overlooking the Colosseum. Just visible in the distance was the Rainbow Factory, and Orion glanced at it and gulped.
What's the matter, Orion? You afraid of getting a dead-end job on the snow line?
Orion chuckled a bit, then closed his eyes and sighed.
No, I don't know. I don't think I could do this. What if I fail? Okay, what if I don't fail? But dude, just bad enough that everyone hates me. I don't think I can handle being deported. Where do you even go anyways?
Scootaloo gave Orion a friendly punch.
No one knows you do it, and we're not going to fail. Everyone here is going to be fine. I know I will at least pass.
Yeah. I just want to pause it here. Like, I like the art in this video, because in the Lost Narrators video or reading of the Rainbow Factory, it's just, I mean, not that the Lost Narrators reading of Rainbow Factory is bad or whatnot. I'm not saying that the video's bad, but I think I prefer it this way here because you can actually see what's going on. So yeah, I just thought I would just say something on the art here.
So that's it from Rainbow Dash. I'm sure to be fine.
Oh yeah, that reassures me. And if not even more reassuring than that psychopathic hate that every pony here seems to love to spread.
Quit panicking, Scaredy Wings.
Yeah,
Scootaloo
man.
teased.
The only pony here I think might fail is that pony over there with the dark green mane. She was the one out sick for that month, you know.
Oh yeah,
Orion remembered as he craned his head in the other pony's direction.
the one with the bad case of hoof and wing. She looks pretty confident though.
I suppose we'll see.
Scootaloo trailed, turning to look to the factory herself. It gave her chills. Not chills of fear, but pride.
I hope I get some cool active weather job. Could you imagine? Everyone in Ponyville and Philadelphia looking up and saying, "There goes Scootaloo, such an amazing flyer, and from Cloudsdale there can be no doubt."
Yeah,
She
keep
smiled
dreaming
in
that.
excitement, forgetting her tension for the moment.
That would be something, I'll admit. Mind you, just coming from Cloudsdale, who wouldn't be in awe?
Exactly! Praise the flock!
Praise the flock!
Places! Places, every pony!
Oh yeah, this guy.
Massive muscle-bound Pegasus walked towards the entrance of the Colosseum.
We are going to do this by name. Your adjudicators are on the east side of the field. Do not, I repeat, do not fly too far west. If the judges lose sight of you for any reason, you will be failed immediately.
Oh, come on, man.
Take deep breaths. Stretch your wings one last time. The test will consist of 3 sections: weather clearing, agility, and finally, recovery. Clear the clouds, fly through the hoops, and then fly to the marked elevation. Close your wings for at least 3 seconds, Any less, and you will fail. But keep in mind, there's no extra points for extra seconds. Finally, recover before you hit the cloud floor. Understood? Any questions?
The instructor paused and carefully glanced at every pony in the room. Everyone's eyes were completely focused on him, and none were creased with confusion.
All right, Aurora Dawn, you're up first. Clear,
Oh, here we go.
fly, fall, complete.
The yellow pony nodded and trotted up to the starting ramp with purpose. She stared at the watching judges, waiting for all three of them to nod. She took off with a powerful force, bouncing the ramp as she did so. Every pony watched as Aurora quickly reached the starting altitude, then began a direct and purposeful attack on the pre-positioned clouds. With expert timing and intelligent turnarounds, the sky was soon empty of any moisture. Scooter and Orion watched with open mouths as she pulled fast and tight turns, expertly shooting through each and every hoop. Finally, Aurora pulled herself up to the proper altitude, hovered, and closed her wings. The group of students gasped as she started plummeting down towards the clouds, and together they counted breathlessly.
I know what's coming here.
1, 2, 3. They sighed as they watched her wings open in the correct amount of time, collectively holding that relief. Suddenly, Aurora's wings went upwards, and the onlookers flinched in horror as they all heard a loud and hollow snap
Oh no.
that was suddenly replaced by an unending, piercing scream.
Yep.
Many, like
Man.
Orion, shielded their eyes with their wings, as others like Scootaloo could only watch, terrified, as the blur of yellow, green, and red plummeted into a cloud with a dull thump.
That
Wasting no time,
sucks.
the instructor walked forwards again, as the three judges simply pointed down and started shuffling papers around. Speaking loudly, as if nothing had happened, he called out again.
Daisy Fields, clear, fly, fall, complete.
Scootaloo and Orion stared slack-jawed as another pony gulped, then walked forwards onto the path and took off. The two turned back to the tuft on the cloud, where Aurora landed and
Man.
stared. As the wind blew the fragments that were thrown
Poor
up from
Aurora
the collision
here,
away,
man.
they saw the shivering yellow body attempt to move, only to collapse with a cry.
Faraday Spots, clear, fly, fall, complete.
Aurora still struggled to walk, wailing with every step. Her legs were broken. She could use them fine, but it was obvious the pain from her wing joints and the loss of her future was crushing her. Scootaloo felt Orion shuffle uneasily, tears welling in his eyes as a frown formed on his face.
Holiday Shine, clear, fly, fall, complete.
No ponies helping her.
Orion seethed through closed teeth. Scootaloo felt extremely sad for the Yellow Pegasus, but couldn't see herself helping her. She would be failed herself and be sent far, far away from Cloudsdale in any familiar place in Equestria, to a place where she and other failed students could never stain Cloudsdale's reputation. It was a terrible shame, but Scootaloo couldn't fail herself. She couldn't fail her friends, and she
No.
definitely couldn't fail Rainbow Dash, not after the care and help she had given her most of her life. Scootaloo blinked the tears from her eyes and forced herself to watch the competing students. One after another they took off, successfully passed the test, and flew to the east gate under the judge's spot in the stands. That's all Scootaloo focused on. Pass the test, fly to the gate, and live a happy life.
Orion Solstice, clear, fly, fall,
Wait,
complete.
Solstice?
No.
What?
The instructor
Wait, what? Sorry, I'm skipping a
Scootaloo
bit,
couldn't fail
guys,
herself.
but
She couldn't fail her friends, and she definitely couldn't fail Rainbow Dash, not after the care and help she had given her most of her life. Scootaloo blinked the tears from her eyes and forced herself to watch the competing students. One after another they took off, successfully passed the test, and flew to the east gate under the judge's spot in the stands. That's all Scootaloo focused on. Pass the test, fly to the gate, and live a happy life.
Orion Solstice, clear,
Orion
fly.
Solstice. Why do people call him Orion Comet then? Okay.
Fly. Fall. Complete.
No.
What?
The instructor took a step back, his front left leg
There we
raised
go.
in the air.
You can't just refuse your flight test.
Yeah,
Get
you
out
can,
of there before
mate.
you piss the judges off.
Oh my
No.
god.
Don't pretend you care about my future if you don't care about hers.
Orion defied,
Yeah.
unsure of himself.
You say you want me to have a good life, and yet you let those that fail suffer unbearable pain.
Yeah,
Get
man.
the
You're
fuck
gonna get
on.
you're gonna get fired. I'm gonna call him coach. I'm gonna call this guy the coach. Yeah, this like if this was like reality, this guy would get fired on the spot, man.
To that field before I fail you myself.
The instructor shouted,
Or at least the
menacingly.
people that are dealing with the flying arena here.
Fine.
Orion snapped before walking onto the ramp. He stared at the watching judges, waited for the individual nods, and the second they
And
came,
probably
he
the
took
coach
off.
too, I don't know.
However, long before the starting altitude, he turned sharply and landed gently next to Aurora. She looked up at him, blood running down her forehead and sides, and tears streamed down her face while she spoke.
Man.
What are you doing? You'll be failed like me. You'll get exiled.
I would rather be exiled from a place that treats ponies like this, rather
Yeah,
than live my
man.
whole life while others don't live theirs.
Aurora smiled, happiness briefly replacing the sadness in her black and puffy eyes, until she stumbled again, and intense pain ripped across her body. Orion leaned in close, using his wing to brace the yellow pony against himself. He glared up at the judges, projecting his hatred at them. They stared down, unaffected, and simply pointed down before looking back towards the ramp for the next contestant. Scootaloo stood shocked, hardly hearing her name called.
Scootaloo. Clear. Fly. Fall. Complete.
She moved numbly up the ramp, never taking her eyes off her friend and the pony he sacrificed himself for to help. After a brief moment, she shook her head, recovered her thoughts, and looked to the judges. Thoughts raced through her head as she watched them all nod.
Oh, Celestia, what do I do? I can't let every pony I know down, but I'll never see Orion again. I hope he knows that risk when he did that. I'm sure he's thinking the same right now.
She
Possibly.
glanced at Orion. He wasn't looking at her. She took off, heartbroken. Instinct kicked in, as the familiar rush of wind cooled her and blew her thoughts away. She stopped at the right altitude, and then launched again, sensing and seeing every cloud, formulating a game plan on the fly. In a matter of a couple dozen seconds, the sky was clear. She did a quick loop in mid-flight, aiming at the first hoop. With a powerful beat of her wings, she propelled forward through the first ring, and then the second, and then the third, expertly turning and drifting with each one. She curved in towards the second last ring near the bottom of the field. As she descended, she caught sight of Orion and Aurora, who were almost at the west gate now. Orion turned his head and smiled weakly. Scootaloo's focus shattered. Orion knew what he did. He cared about her. He'd miss her, and he'd never get to say goodbye. Scootaloo cranked into the bottom part of the ring, falling backwards several feet and hitting the ground. With a sudden intense flash of fear, she flipped herself onto her hooves and began flapping her wings, levitating off the ground.
Maybe that didn't count as a failure. I can still fly.
It is gonna count.
She thought. She spun around at the judges. 3 hooves pointed down. Scootaloo
Damn.
started crying there, tears welling up and blurring her vision. This wasn't right. This shouldn't have happened.
No.
None of it. Orion should have passed this test, and she had run from the east gate. She shouldn't have looked at him. She should have focused on flying. But there was no room for excuses. Defeated, she slowly hovered towards Orion and settled down next to him. She looked at him through her purple eyes. He looked back, offering a smile.
You did a good job.
Scootaloo dropped her head and sobbed. She then walked around Orion, lifted a wing of her own, and helped Aurora walk to the west gate. Before them stood a long, unlit hall, with only cheap signs stuck to the wall notifying test failures to proceed down the hall. They waited only briefly to gather themselves and prepare for where they'd be taken. and then all step forward together.
Man.
Against the empty carriage at the end of the lonely hall were 3 imposing ponies, leaning in disinterested and bored poses. One of them happened to glance up as the sorry-looking trio stumbled out into the open. They were on the bottom edge of the Colosseum, with the vast rolling hills and plains of Equestria visible far below.
Hey boss, we got some of them worthless Pegasus.
The first one called out to an even bigger pony on the other side of the carriage.
I guess it's get to work time, is it?
Cool it, Hotshot. There may be more too.
No, I was the last student to go.
Skulu spoke in sobs. Orion could only hang his head.
It's...
She paused, and then breathed deeply, determined to remain as strong as she could.
It's just us 3. Aurora's wings, they're broken.
Ain't that a crying shame it is?
Oh, come on,
What's
man.
it to us? Better she don't come flying back here no more.
We may have failed our damn test, but that doesn't mean we're not worth keeping alive!
Scootaloo shouted in a flash of rage. She was determined to hold on to as much dignity as she could.
All right, sheesh. Hey, Patches, doctor her up before we head out. I don't want any blood on them seats, I just washed that thing. Other 2, in the cart.
Orion and Scootaloo hopped into the carriage and got as comfortable as they could on the hard seats, but made sure to leave room for Aurora. As soon as a third of the large ponies finishing bandaging for her wings, Aurora carefully stepped onto the vehicle and lay down on the bench at the back. Scootaloo inched closer to her and leaned down to talk as the door of the carriage slammed shut. The boss pony was inside the back, standing by the door, watching each of them. Scootaloo began quietly, trying not to speak too loud.
So, you're Aurora. I'm Skittaloo. I'm sorry we had to meet like this.
Any meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting.
Aurora spoke gently, with
That classic
sincerity in
line.
her eyes.
We did our best. That's all we can say. That's all any of us can say. Who's to say the city of the deported isn't a good one anyways?
The thought struck Scootaloo as she considered it. No one was ever told where the Pegasi were brought. Most ponies considered it to be some odd land, like where the zebras hailed from. That made Scootaloo realize something more profound.
Hey, if we're being taken to where Zikora's from, there has to be a way back. It's not like we're banned from Equestria. Fluttershy, an old friend of mine. She's a Pegasus from Ponyville. She never passed flight school. She never took her test. They've never come and taken her away.
Exactly.
Aurora agreed, nodding. Orion overheard and offered his thoughts.
I think the reason
I'm surprised that Fluttershy didn't take her test in this universe.
we're sent so far away is because no pony from Cloudsdale wants to admit that some pony that failed flight school could come from their city. What a fucking horrible place now I think about it. I never want to go back.
Maybe that's why no Pegasus ever comes back. They just don't like Cloudsdale.
You goddamn worthless ponies can hardly call yourself Pegasi.
Oh,
Boss
man.
spoke from the door. He was swaying ever so slightly as the carriage was lifted and began moving to an unknown location.
Useless failures is what you are. No pony comes back from exile, regardless of reason. Can't even pass your damn test. You 3 make me sick.
Scootaloo jumped up from her seat, lifted herself into the air with her wings, and dove legs first at Boss.
You shut the hell up about us!
Boss raised a hoof and backhand Scootaloo out of the air and onto the floor.
I like
I
how,
can treat you however I want.
oh, come
you
on,
hardly
man.
classify as ponies to Cloudsdale, or
I like how this guy is just called Boss. You know? Like, it's, he could have been called some other name, but, you know, but yeah.
any of Equestria for that matter. Now sit the fuck down and shut up until you get to your destination.
Where are we being taken to anyway? It's not like we can tell any pony now. And I'm sure as the delivery coast you should know.
Orion cautiously reasoned.
Damned if I know. We hand this carriage off to ponies in suits, we get a bag full of bits to keep quiet about the whole thing.
Of
How it's
course.
always been, for 1,000 years.
The three fools held it together again, scared of their unknown fate. They kept quiet as they waited through the unbearable trip, all lost in their own thoughts. Friends, family, loved ones, and pets,
Just
all would never see them again, and some would never find out why. An hour
okay, yeah, I
passed,
see.
and then another. Finally, the uncomfortable quiet was broken by a sudden lurch as the carriage stopped in its flight.
Ah,
Boss smiled.
there's my stop. You ponies play nice now. Have fun wherever the hell you're sent to.
The carriage to the door shuffled open, and Boss hopped out with a gust of cold wind. It was night now, with hardly any light to see with at all. Scootaloo stared outside and noticed another figure staring in. It was dressed in a shadowy suit, its tail dyed in unnatural black. Its face was covered by a dark, loose-fitting mask, concealing its mane. All that were visible were rose-colored eyes staring empty at the three ponies inside. They stopped on Scootaloo momentarily. Indifferent, but she stared back. A second passed. The dark pony slammed the door shut, and the carriage took off once again.
At least we can talk now.
Aurora whispered in the dark, but they had nothing to talk about. The carriage finally shuddered to a stop. The three desolate fools blinked their eyes awake, all of them having resolved to conserve energy for whatever came next. With a loud scraping noise, the door shook and then swung wide open. Several more ponies,
There we
obscured by
go.
those same masks and suits, moved around the area. Scootaloo blinked against the light from what she was seeing. They were in a cloud building, and as her eyes adjusted, she noticed more details. Several of the cloaked ponies were rushing around, some holding clipboards, some carrying briefcases, and other important-looking items on their backs. The complex was full of machinery and signs. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and a loud, consistent hum ran in the background, occasionally joined with other industrial sounds such as crashes and alarms. Scootaloo gasped.
This place, the architecture, it all looks so familiar. I
Wait.
think we're in the weather factory.
Orion frowned.
That can't be right. We've been traveling for way too long. We've got to be far away from Equestria by now, not to mention the city.
Actually, Scootaloo may be right.
Aurora mused.
I noticed it was maybe the same amount of travel time from where the carriage driver swapped to here than it was from the Coliseum to there. But I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe that's just a coincidence.
Welcome, mules!
A large and powerful voice commanded. Several of the suited ponies moved to make way for the deep, dark red Pegasus, dressed in a white lab coat.
You degenerates are probably wondering where exactly you are. Stupid fillies! You're in Cloudsdale. The Rainbow facility, to be correct. Allow me to show you around.
What's going on here? Do you expect to use us as slaves? Because I'd rather be deported.
Scootaloo yelled. Orion and Aurora got off their seats and stood behind Scootaloo, nodding in agreement.
Let you failures have a choice. You'll be here for the rest of your lives!
Dude.
I'm sorry, where are my manners? I am Dr. Atmosphere. My degree isn't a medical one, I shall reassure you. In case you're picturing some dreadful surgery going on behind the scenes. Strange how many worthless Pegasi gets that idea. No. My degree is in engineering. I'm one of the Farcolds in this facility. I'm sure you've all had a tour of the lower factory, no?
The three ponies nodded slowly, unsure of what was going on.
Excellent! Who can tell me where the tour begins?
Orion spoke up first.
Where the Spectra is made from upstairs and is mixed.
Very good. What a pity you're utterly worthless to the flock. You could have been a smart one.
Dr. Atmosphere smiled sadistically and patted Orion on the head.
But today we're on the upper floor. Please don't fall too far behind, or one of my helpers will
Oh,
be forced
no.
to encourage you.
With that, he winked at the suited ponies. Nodding, three of them at the rear leaned forward and jabbed each of the young Pegasi with liquid thunder-tipped rods, shocking them to the
Oh
ground.
no, there you go.
Dr. Atmosphere whinnied in laughter as they all yelped and fell, continuing into a soft chuckle as they all stood up again.
Man.
Scootaloo blinked the tears from her eyes and shook herself, trying to lose the tingling numbness in her nerves. She turned and quickly looked at each of the masked ponies, catching each of them in the eye when she could. None of them were the rose-eyed pony from the carriage. Begrudgingly, she started walking behind the red engineer.
You must simply be careful in this department. There's plenty of nooks and
There we
crannies
go,
and
there's,
vents and vats one could fall into. One must be careful not to hurt themselves. After all, you're already hopeless as it is. Any more so, and even we couldn't use you.
He glanced behind himself maliciously, as the Threefolds frowned, insulted by his words. They were walking down a hallway with vibrating machines and assembly lines lining the way, occasionally ducking under low-hanging wires, or carefully stepping over steaming pipes. As they walked through, the building became cooler and cooler. All three were scrutinizing, studying, desperately looking for any way out. They couldn't see any.
Now, let me tell you a story. Cloudsdale is where the weather is made. Without us, the rest of Equestria would starve, freeze, drown, and generally be a not very happy place. That gives us a special honor. One that can't
Sure
be
it
tainted
does.
by, incompetent folks like you. How could the world look up and trust us if Pegasi like you are flying around bearing the Cloudsdale name? No, we needed to do something with all of you. And then we got a delicious idea. One day, over 1,000 years ago. Those were some smart ponies back then, I'll say. You don't find too many of them these days.
He chuckled.
Yeah, I wonder
But I
why.
digress. Here, through these doors, quickly now, before more encouragement is supplied.
Dr. Atmosphere opened a gray, heavy-looking door in the wide corridor. And offered a hoof inside. Scootaloo stared up at him. He glanced at the suited pony. Scootaloo and the others walked inside and he laughed again.
Enjoy the rest of your pitiful life.
Man. I like
And with that, he slammed the door closed.
I like the voice for Dr. Atmosphere in this video, or well yeah, here, because I think it sounds almost similar to the one it almost sounds similar to the one in the Lost Narrators video. Maybe it's the same voice actor, I don't know. But
They all turned and
Okay.
looked at the big room they had been let into. It was fairly open and empty, almost like a theater room. At one end of the room, there was a peculiar-looking machine. It was large and cubic, and almost featureless save for the 8 clear glass tubes that jutted out the sides like spider legs. At the top of the box was a single massive hopper, red with rust despite the rest of the machine appearing shiny and clean. Even further above that were a system of chains and gears that hung loosely off of the length of the scaffolding. Down on the floor, a small collection of defeated crying ponies sat idly chatting.
Those uniforms they're wearing, those are from the other flight schools across town.
Aurora informed, sounding shocked.
And those other ponies sitting over there, see? I remember a trip we went on once with Levitating Acres Private School. I remember them from that trip.
So, is this where all the failures go?
seems
Not
like
deported,
it.
Forced to work forever?
Orion whined. In exchange for helping someone, he had doomed himself and his friend to a life of servitude. Scootaloo reached a reassuring wing over and lifted his chin with it. She
As I
smiled
said,
at him, sympathetic.
as I said in the in my reaction to the animated song by what's his name again, Dugor, like, man, it sucks for the Pegasi in the Rainbow Factory universe, man. Like, it really does. man.
At least we don't have to go through it alone.
She reassured. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the group of test failures. One pony from an unidentified school took off, heading towards one of the doors of the scaffolding. Immediately, two workers launched at record speed, and both clipped the flyaway with their tasers.
Oh no.
The full spasm in the air, and then dropped like a stone. He landed with an audible crack,
Man.
broke into a violent burst of twitching, and all the other ponies jumped back, staring horrified at their friend. They watched,
That's
hopeful,
gotta hurt.
for a long time. He didn't move. Some cried
Oh.
softly, but most others turned away, far too shocked to feel anything.
I guess that option's out.
Aurora
Yeah.
quietly said to no one in particular.
But you can't fly right now, anyways.
Orion questioned.
That meta guy, Patches, or whatever he was called, he popped my wings back into their joints and bandaged up where my skin tore. I won't be winning any races, but I think I can fly again.
They shuffled forwards and joined the group of ponies, looking at each other with understanding sorrow.
Eyes front and center, you nuts mules!
One of the workers shouted. After the previous display, no one challenged that order, and they stared at the scaffolding just as one of the doors opened. A few official-looking Pegasi walked in on the scaffolding and turned to look down on the group with disgust. Dr. Atmosphere stood onto a small podium set up in the center and began speaking loudly and clearly.
By now, you've all clearly determined that you are not going into exile. There is no deportation. There never was. You are in the factory. You will never leave the factory. And while you may be called useless, that's also not entirely true. You're worthless to the flock as a pony, but you
come
still
on,
have
man.
purpose. Purpose to all the ponies in this land, far and wide. You get to help us make rainbows. Beautiful, magical rainbows. Doesn't that excite you?
He grinned ecstatically, taking in all the disgusted looks from every foal on the floor below him.
Hey, so. It's just such an honor, you know? It leaves every pony entrusted with the task speechless, too. Now, do we have any volunteers?
Again, every pony below glared with hate. One brave foal, a light pink one from Levitating Acres, walked forward a few steps and yelled.
How could you ever get away with this? How could Celestia or even Luna know about this and tolerate it? It's slavery. It's torture.
I think you'll find it's more than that.
Oh, here we
The official
go.
pony walked out of the
Here we
shadows onto
go.
the podium. They were still obscured by a suit and mask, but Scootaloo noticed that it was the same rose-eyed pony from before. Dr. Atmosphere walked off the podium and allowed the second to talk, and Scootaloo watched more intently now. The voice was familiar, and she focused, trying to place it.
1,000 years ago, when Celestia banished Luna from Equestria and sent her to the moon, she was charged with 3 tasks. She originally was in charge of raising the sun and showering the land with rainbows. But with the moon being an additional task, she had to hand down the responsibility of rainbows. Celestia entrusted the Pegasi of Cloudsdale to make the rainbows for her, and from then on, for the first dozen years, we were given powerful unicorns to help create Spectra. Spectra is pure pigment, pure color. Everything is full of spectra, but you can't just harvest it. You can never separate color from an object, so it was made artificially with magic.
The masked pony never took her eyes off the brave pink one.
That is, until our top engineers made a breakthrough. They discovered an ingenious way to extract pigment, and it was so beautiful that even a simple machine could do it. But it couldn't be done with just anything. The conditions had to be right.
What did those horrible ponies do?
The pink Pegasus screamed, growing angrier by the minute. The mysterious pony whipped off her mask, unveiling more than her rose eyes. Her skin was a light cyan, and her mane was a gorgeous rainbow. Several of the fillies gasped. Scootaloo's knees weakened as it hit her. It was Rainbow Dash.
Of course.
Scootaloo's
Of course it would be Rainbow Dash. It's in the title, Rainbow Factory, because who else would be the villain in a title like this? I mean, you know, yeah.
thoughts raced through her mind, and the room started spinning. It couldn't be. An evil twin, maybe? Perhaps a neglected sister. Rainbow Dash couldn't be this evil. She was her friend, her mentor, her only family.
Yeah.
Even if not by blood. How? How was all she could think.
It had to be live ponies! Only in ponies where magic and Spectra ran freely together!
Rainbow Dash threw her head back and laughed maniacally.
Only then could the Spectra be separated! And it was such a beautiful idea! Such a wonderfully horrible idea!
Oh my god.
And it worked so well! We could create exponentially more rainbows, of better quality, and in a real Spectra! And it finally gave us a way to prevent Cloudsdale from being tainted by all of those horrible ponies that couldn't fly!
Scootaloo couldn't take it. While all the other ponies were exclaiming their disgust and fear, running and screaming from where they came in, backing off as workers surrounded them and herded them back into the center of the floor. Scootaloo couldn't take it anymore.
I thought you loved me!
Oh, here we
Rainbow
go.
Dash turned, spotting the amber-orange Pegasus as she wailed.
I thought you loved me! How could you do this to me? I thought you cared about me! After all the help, all my life. You treated me like a little sister, and I treated you like a big sister. You were my big sister. You were the only family I ever had, and you knew it!
Tears were
Man.
pouring down her face now, obscuring her vision again. Her throat hurt from the crying and shouting, but she couldn't stop.
After everything, you're just going to let me die? I tried so hard! I tried so hard for you.
She stared at the floor for a moment. Everyone was silent. Then Scootaloo looked up slowly, and while she couldn't see for the tears in her eyes, she looked straight at Rainbow Dash, straight into those rosy eyes, past them, and deep into Rainbow Dash herself.
I thought you loved me.
Rainbow Dash returned the look. Her eyes revealed no emotion, no love, no care.
This
only
is just
apathy.
sad.
Slowly, however, they glared at Scootaloo. Pure, seething hate erupted from Rainbow Dash's mouth as she screamed in return.
I did love you! I tried so hard for you! I taught you everything I knew! In hopes you passed your test! You had it in you, kid! I knew what they did here. Ever since I performed that sonic rain boom, and they approached me. They wanted to find more ways to create Spectrum. They thought if I was capable of making rainbows, then I could help them make its components. Well, they couldn't! But I learned a lot from this place. I'm the manager here now, you know? I worked my way up, in secret, pretending to be simple weather control. How do you think I can afford that massive house in Ponyville? How do you...
I mean,
How did you...
it kind of makes sense because, like, that the house that Rainbow Dash has got is probably like really like the expensive house in the world possibly. So And I'm guessing that the Rainbow Factory, or the Weather Factory, is basically the most, I want to say, dream job in the world, I'm going to say, in this universe. I don't know.
She trailed, shaking her head, remembering her anger suddenly.
I tried, alright? I was up to you to save yourself! You didn't just fail yourself! You didn't just fail Cloudsdale! You failed me! And that is the worst thing you could have done. You're not just dead to Cloudsdale now. You're dead to me.
The room tilted as Skula tried to
Shit.
comprehend what she was told. Her mind broke. Unable to focus on anything, she stumbled slightly until Orion held open a wing, and she clung to it for stability. Rainbow Dash noticed this and pointed and yelled with more fury.
You can't have happiness.
Oh
You
no.
ruined me.
There we
Now
go. Get
I'll
ready
ruin
for
you.
the
Workers! The brown one there! Him first!
Oh
Scootaloo, Aurora, and Orion all jumped.
no. Man.
Pseudoponies cornered Orion, pushing the other two to the side. He
Yeah.
tried to
If there's any Orion fans out there, prepare yourselves, because man, this is gonna be heartbreaking.
leap out of the way, to run, but one of the stallions spun around and kicked at him. The hoof connected to his shoulder, and Orion collapsed with a shout.
Get back!
More workers yelled at Aurora and Scootaloo as they dragged him, whipping Orion to the front of the room. The giant machine at the back started humming to life, and the assembly of chains lifted off the top and moved towards the floor. As they
Man.
dropped, it became clear that they weren't chains, but shackles, and the workers collapsed Orion into them. Braving a look up, he turned to Scootaloo.
Don't worry, Scoots. I love you.
Man.
Goodbye, Orion. I love you too.
With that, the chains pulled tight and lifted the brown Pegasus all the way up to the gears. The chains grew taut and stretched each of Orion's limbs straight up and down.
We find the machine works better when the ribs are broken.
Rainbow Dash explained apathetically as the chains
wish I
spun
had a
around
hat
in
or
opposite
something.
directions, twisting Orion. His screams almost covered the echoing pops and shattering noises. One or two jagged bones tore through his side, and his yells faded to a slow, quiet rattle of breath. The chains
Man.
untwisted, and then the shackles opened, dropping the shattered pony into the single opening. With horror, Scootaloo watched. Her brain, overcome with what was happening, detached itself from all emotion. She noticed that the top of the machine wasn't rusty. It was blood. Blood. Just like what was being tossed up from the mangled remains of Orion as the rest of his body was swallowed into the great machine. Alternating rows of scythe-like blades drug him down until only one lone hoof directed straight up could be seen. And then, there was nothing. As the tubes of green and red spectrum started spewing their brilliant colors, her vision started to fade, and the last thing she noticed was Aurora's concerned, broken voice saying Scootaloo's name as she flopped to the side.
Man.
Scootaloo, get up! Get up now! Hurry, Scootaloo! Wake up! Wake up!
Scootaloo shook her head, briefly wondering where she was and what was happening. In a flash, it all came back, and she jumped to her hooves. Aurora was shaking her, fright encasing her face. The workers were starting to approach the two now, tasers and shackles up and ready.
Scootaloo, they're coming for us. What do we do?
Scootaloo looked for an opening. All the doors were blocked except for one. Up on the scaffolding next to the directors, the suited ponies were slowly approaching, not rushing as they delighted in the fool's terror. Fear was their tool. Scootaloo spun around looking for an exit. There was only the one, she realized.
I have a plan.
She whispered to Aurora.
What's that?
Clear fly fall complete.
Aurora's eyes widened after a moment, and she nodded, understanding. She repeated, louder now, so that the other frightened fillies could hear.
Clear, fly, fall, complete. Got it.
1.
Scootaloo started counting.
2.
Aurora squeaked as she backed into Scootaloo. The workers were mere feet away now.
3!
A collective
Yep,
shout
there we
reverberated
go.
around the room.
They're escaping
as every
now.
filly that could actually fly took off. The suited ponies gasped and fell back, unsure of where to go. There was too much confusion. A few of the faster thinking ones took off as well, tasers at the ready, aiming at the closest Pegasus they could take.
Step 1! Clear!
Scootaloo screamed. With her command, the failures started targeting the dark ponies in droves. Hooves connected with heads, and while some of the students fell lifeless to the floor, the majority of casualties were the suited ponies. Scootaloo and Aurora landed on the scaffolding, right by the door, and reached to open it. It was locked.
Oh, Celestia, what do we do now?
We're still unclear!
Scootaloo shouted, turning around and bucking the door. Aurora followed her lead, focusing the brunt of her blows on the part of the wall where the latch would be. Rainbow Dash on the other side of the scaffolding recovered from her initial shock of the rebellion and noticed Scootaloo pounding on the door.
Kill her!
She screamed at the
dear.
other important-looking ponies.
Kill her!
She started to gallop towards the fillies, forgetting her wings in the moment. Scootaloo closed her eyes, pounding harder and harder on the door. It started to creak and bend.
Any second now, Rainbow Dash will get here. It's over. I'm doomed.
She thought. She would have cried if she had any tears left. The door started to split from its frame, now leaning inward. It wouldn't be long until it was open. Scootaloo realized Dash still hadn't reached her, and she opened her clenched eyes, peeking up at the scaffolding. All the remaining ponies were there, pressing together, holding the enraged blue Pegasus and her cronies back. They wouldn't last long, however.
Oh,
Even as
no.
Scootaloo watched, twitching and yelping foals were falling to the floor below, some even landing in the great maw of the Pegasus device. The pink pony from Levitating Acres was there, and she turned to Scootaloo Aurora, just as the door blew open to the hall behind.
Fly.
The pink pony demanded with pain in her voice. She opened her mouth to speak again, but was cut short as the pile of Pegasi blew apart, with Rainbow Dash standing enraged in the opening. She was on her two back hooves, her front two rolling in the air. A small gash down her side leaked red, and her multicolored mane was torn in a patch. An unearthly howl passed her lips, and her rose eyes were drained of any sanity that was left.
Come on, Aurora. We've got to fly if we want to live.
Scootaloo pleaded as she spun around.
I can't. This is too much. I haven't healed. Flying up here hurt too much.
Aurora looked at Scootaloo with wide open eyes.
You go, Scootaloo. Tell everyone what happens here. Let them know.
She glanced back at the wall of students, almost bare now, as Rainbow Dash's bloodlust tore them to pieces. Dash's blue coat was now glistening crimson, almost dripping as she ignored the need for live ponies. There would be more. Cloudsdale could take a small shortage of rainbows. In another few months there would be more classes, more failures. But for now, all she knew was that Scootaloo had to die, violently if possible. Decades of working for the Rainbow Factory had fractured her. Being a director, she was one of the only ones allowed out in public, and keeping the horrible secret with her had only led to psychological problems that no amount of therapy could cure. Scootaloo was her last link on sanity, and her failure had deleted that. There was no logic in her mind anymore, no care, no capacity for compassion, only hate. Pure, concentrated, evil hatred filled the gap her love for Scootaloo had once occupied.
I wonder how Rainbow Dash kind of hid this away from the other main five, because Well, no, 4 now because yeah. Anyways.
Rainbow Dash was no more. Only this monster remained.
I hardly knew you, Aurora. I'm sorry I never knew you until all of this. I'm sorry we had to meet like this, and I'm sorry we have to part like this.
She sniffed. She had found more tears.
Any meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting.
Aurora reassured Scootaloo.
Now you heard the other pony. Fly, Scootaloo, fly. Goodbye.
I think some of the
With that,
I think some of the dialogue is different in this version or in this video. Well, yeah. 'Cause I don't remember I don't remember that being said in the Lost Narrator's reading. I don't know.
Scootaloo hovered and spun around, glanced back into the yellow pony's eyes one last time, and launched down the cramped corridor. She had no idea where she was going, but any chance at freedom was one she had to take. Aurora blinked a couple times. Standing in front of the door, Rainbow Dash would have at least one obstacle in her way to Scootaloo. The blue pony tossed the last of the other students over the scaffolding and slowly walked towards Aurora.
And Aurora fans, get ready.
How cute! You think that you, a useless, broken pile of manure, can stand in my way? You really make me laugh. None of you can compete to the awesome power that I have.
Love can overcome all evils in this world.
Aurora stood tall in rebellion as Rainbow Dash stopped in front of her. Aurora stayed in front of Dash, barring her entry down to the corridor beyond.
Well then, bitch. Let's see if love can overcome this one.
And with that, Rainbow Dash grabbed one of Aurora's bandaged wings and yanked, tearing it off her completely. Aurora collapsed to her knees, grinding her teeth in horrible pain. But she didn't scream. She wouldn't give in to Rainbow Dash. Rainbow grabbed her of the wing and dragged the kicking and moaning filly down to the center of the scaffolding. She lifted Aurora up by the wing, laughing quietly to herself as the look of intense agony appeared on Aurora's face. Rainbow Dash took to the air, bringing the squirming yellow and green pony with her over to the top of the device. With a squeak of evil laughter, she jerked at the wing in her hoof. It too disconnected from the now convulsing Pegasus, and Aurora fell, landing headfirst in the rows of alternating blades. The door on the scaffolding swung
Screw you, Rainbow Dash.
with a gust of wind, just as the machine began pumping out the brightest green nails it ever produced. But there was no one around to see it.
Okay, here we go. The final part.
Scootaloo glanced backwards momentarily, her heart pounding. The noise of the constant thump drowned out any other sound in her head, and her ears throbbed along with it. The corridor was just like the one that led to the theater room, cramped with dozens of obstacles jutting out at random intervals. Straight behind her, maybe 100 meters now, the bloody mare that used to be Rainbow Dash was cruising along the scaffolding. Both Pegasi were completely straight. Hooves forward, wings beating at an impossible count. One trying to escape, the other to capture. Scoo looked forward again, focusing on what lay ahead of her.
That's all that matters. What's ahead of me? There's no changing what's behind me. Ignore it. Focus.
For the second time in as many days, a flood of instinct overtook Scootaloo, and despite the terror she had felt in her body, the sorrow that surrounded her, and the evil behind her, her worries melted away, and the thought of flying encased her very being. Down under the wires and pipes she ducked, up and around the various workers whose complaints and shouts were ignored, only to be repeated momentarily as the raging pony behind collided with them, her body doing the flying. Scoo's thoughts turned to escape opportunities. She whipped around sharp corners at impossible speeds, zipped up and down countless sets of stairs trying to shake her murderous tail to no avail. She contemplated every nook and cranny she passed, and briefly considered hiding if she could get enough distance. She struck that idea down. As insane as Rainbow Dash may be, she was still too smart to overlook any possible spot Skulu might have hidden in. But there, ahead of her, Skoo thought she found a solution. A garbage bin of some kind stuck out of the wall, leading seemingly down to the floor below. For the briefest of moments, she gave thought to where it may go, whether out of the factory or into some incinerator. She couldn't tell, but it was probably worth the risk. She snuck one last glance behind her to make sure the unstable mare was far enough away. Rainbow Dash paid no attention to any hazards as she saw her prey, tearing through electrical wires and ricocheting off heated pipes, going through any obstacle rather than around it to save time. Thankfully, the collisions had slowed her down enough to give Scootaloo a chance. She slammed to a sudden halt over the open vent, hoping for her life.
Fall.
Here we
She
go.
muttered, closing her eyes and her wings, resisting the urge to start flapping immediately. She counted silently to herself as shadows rushed past her closed eyes, hoping for the best of where this vent led to.
1, 2, 3.
She opened her eyes and her wings and looked up, hovering. Rainbow Dash was up above, looking down into the vent. Her eyes were buggy and twitched, and she pounded her hooves on the edge of the vent. She was too large to follow, with Skula having barely made it in herself. But then, the anger in her face vanished, only to be replaced by a malicious grin.
You moron! You never did have a good sense of direction!
Scootaloo finally looked down, getting her bearings.
Oh no!
She was in the theater room again, only by now it was full of workers circling her. Their masked faces seemed to be grinning at her as Rainbow Dash shouted orders down the vent.
Don't let her die! I want to do it! Just subdue her! Catch her!
Fuck you, Rainbow Dash.
She whinnied in glorious victory as the worker shocked Skulu with a taser. And as her limp body began to fall from the air, they caught her and brought her to the floor. Skulu blacked out momentarily as the electricity passed through her, but she came to lying on the cold cloud floor, metal shackles preventing her from moving. She struggled to get free. She could hardly shake. The chains lifted her slightly, bringing her small body eye to eye with the Pegasus in front of her. The pony was a deep blood red glistening in the artificial light of the factory. Her mane had small spots of glorious colors of the rainbow, but was mostly the same red color as her coat of fur. Chunks of skin were missing from small spots, and her hair was ripped in some places, bald patches of the skin in others. The only clue Scootaloo had as to who this used to be were those rose irises focused on her.
Any final words, you miserable, worthless whore of a fool?
Scootaloo brought her chin high, still demanding even the tiniest fraction of dignity.
You have beautiful eyes.
Man. I have to give a clap there because narrated, edited, and produced by Grim Narrator, art by Silent Savvy, animation by Klingergun 101, music by Daniel, Kevin, and yeah, man, this was I had to dance to this. Man, voiced by Junior, that was Orion. Instructor, voiced by Andrew. Aurora Dawn, voiced by Sophia Mia. Hotshot, voiced by Quill Feather. And Boss, voiced by Mindscape. Man, Grim Narrator, you did a great job, man, and all of the people involved with this production, man. Thanks you all for watching. You're welcome, man. During the escape, oh, is there gonna be? Hold on, I need to make sure that that is off there. Okay, it looks like there's. Wait, there was another pony. Oh yeah. Okay. Hear the story of how one pony's changed his life. Yeah. Awoken. Became his life. Written by Sen. Oh yeah, this is the guy that wrote Awoken, which is the next Rainbow Factory story. Man. Okay, so that was Rainbow Factory, read by Grim Narrator, and as I said before, Grim Narrator, you did an awesome job, as well as the people in the production. So yeah, yeah, I have to give another clap for that one because, man, all of this was just, man, like, I like how you and your production team managed to put this all together, man. Especially like for the voices as well, man. So yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this reaction video, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next Rainbow Factory video. Goodbye.